So you walk into a conversation trying to be honest, seeking to be clear, finally saying the thing that actually matters, and somehow within minutes the whole thing slides sideways, right? They get tense, they start to defend, they interrupt you, or maybe they go quiet, and you just get that sense that they've already left the conversation, but even though they're still standing there. And so now, instead of talking about the actual issue, you're now managing the reaction. And that's the part that folks usually don't talk about. That most communication problems are not actually communication problems. They're problems of your state of being. And by the end of this clip, you'll understand why conversation shifts so fast emotionally, what's actually happening underneath the words, and how you can stay connected to yourself while the conversation is actually unfolding in real time. Okay? That's what we're going to talk about. Hi, I'm Leeza Steindorf. I'm an international leadership coach and facilitator. And for more than 20 years, I've worked with professionals, teams, and organizations around communication, conflict, leadership, and what actually happens to human beings under pressure. And if this keeps happening to you, there's nothing wrong with you. It actually happens to very thoughtful people all the time. People who care, people who are trying to be in relationship, people who genuinely want to communicate well. So if this information is useful to you, go ahead, like the video, subscribe so you'll know when other ones come out, because these conversations actually build on each other. So let's take this slowly. Most people think that conversations break down because somebody used the wrong wording or didn't say the right thing. And absolutely, wording can matter, of course it does. But most conversations don't collapse or implode because one person chose the wrong sentence. They actually collapse because the emotional state changed underneath the conversation, like what was carrying it. And that's the real shift. The second that someone feels criticized, or that they're cornered, or they've been misunderstood or judged, or they are going to feel emotionally unsafe in some way. And then their nervous system changes. Yeah, their state of being. And once that happens, they're not hearing you anymore. They are tracking threat. That's what they're looking for. And you can actually feel the moment that happens. If you pay attention to it, you can start to groom that sense, right? Something tightens, the energy changes, their pacing changes, the tone, just something's different. And now there are two people that are no longer together exploring a subject. One person is busy protecting themselves. And that really matters. Changes everything. Because once protection enters the situation, clarity goes right out the window. And here's where people get confused, because they think, well, I'm right. Okay, maybe you are. But being right and being receivable are not the same skill. Okay? And that's a hard part of conflict. And when people are trying to clarify communication, it's a hard realization, especially for people that are really intelligent. Because you can be completely accurate and on point and still communicate in a way that the other person just cannot take it in. And it's not because they're weak, and it's not because you're bad, but because the state always affects how we receive things. What state I'm in impacts how I receive things, and what state the other person is in absolutely affects how they're going to receive from you. So one of the most useful questions that you can ask yourself right in the middle of the conversation is, what actually happened? And what meaning am I adding to it? And that changes everything. So for example, the fact might be they didn't respond. If I give it the meaning, they don't care, they're dismissing me, they're disrespecting me, it's very different, right? The fact is they interrupted. I might give it the meaning they don't ever listen. The fact might be their tone changed, right? I might give it the meaning they're attacking me. And sometimes your interpretation may be correct. However, when you speak from that interpretation, before you actually separate what happened from the meaning you gave it, the next thing you say carries that pressure. Even if they sound polite, your words. People feel your conclusions. They feel the meaning that you've given to something. And that's not only important, that's really everything. Because most of the interactions between people are not about the words. It's about that state. It's about that energetic exchange. And you may think you're asking a question, but emotionally you may already be giving or delivering to them a verdict about something. And that's what the other person is feeling immediately. It's not your words that they're feeling. And that's why they're becoming defensive before you've even technically said anything wrong. Because communication is never just the words. It's the state. It's the pacing. It's the tension. It's the assumptions that aren't spoken. It's how things are emotionally loaded, I'm going to say. It's whether that other person feels like there's safety and space inside the conversation that they can exist in, right? And that's the deeper layer. It's what carries everything. So now here's another shift that changes everything. What if communication is not primarily about proving your point? That's a hard one, okay? What if it's about creating enough safety and steadiness that people's individual truth can actually be present between them, even if it's different truths that they have? That's a very different framework for communication. And it doesn't mean you have to abandon your own experience at all. It doesn't mean that you need to get soft. It doesn't mean you have to manage everyone's emotions. And it doesn't mean you have to never say the things that may be difficult. Some of the clearest communicators I know are incredibly direct, but they're not delivering from a charged state. They're in a different place in themselves, and that's the difference. They stay connected to themselves while they're speaking. And that creates something very different in the communication because people feel less braced against what's being said or against the person. And when that pressure drops, something else very interesting happens. People stay in the conversation longer. They listen more. They defend themselves less. They stop preparing their own counter argument while you're still speaking. Suddenly, the conversation actually becomes possible. And it's not because people are agreeing at all, but because the nervous system is no longer ready to fight for survival or to flee. And that's the moment that real communication can take place. So what do you actually do with this, right? Not theoretically, but on a really practical basis. First of all, slow it down, even more than it feels natural. Most people speed up when emotions get intense. Take a break. Most people want to explain more and justify more and stack up their points and push harder because we get nervous, right? Some people get fearful if people aren't disagreeing. And ironically, the harder they push, the less receivable they become. So slow down. You can learn it. I promise you. If I could do this, anybody could do it, right? You say one sentence and then you wait. You let that land. You don't have to fill the silences. And second, speak from your experience instead of from what you've concluded. Like, speak the obvious of what's going on or what went on for you. That's a big difference between you don't care and when I didn't hear back, I noticed I started telling myself this might not matter to you. Those are two completely different worlds. You don't care, or when I didn't hear back, I noticed I started to tell myself, wow, maybe it doesn't matter to them. One invites defensiveness on them if I tell them they don't care, and the other one actually invites them into the conversation. Okay? The third thing is stay in your body. And this matters more than you can imagine. Feel your feet. Notice your breathing. Relax your jaw. Unclench your shoulders. Like literally embody yourself in ease. Because if your body isn't threat, your communication will often carry that threat forward. Even when your words sound measured. Your being, your state is communicating. And finally, and this one matters a lot, stop abandoning yourself the moment the person reacts. They are going to have the reactions. And that's where many conversations collapse. Not when the tension appears, but when you leave yourself trying to manage what's going on for the other person. If they're upset, they're upset. And I know that's a big one to overcome. I had to work on that really hard, right? But a lot of people start over-explaining or editing yourself or starting to apologize for things, or there you go the other direction and get sharp and start to threaten and so forth, right? Either direction, you've left yourself. And once you leave yourself, the conversation stops being grounded in each person's truth. Now it's grounded in reaction. And that's where things go south. Because real communication is not perfect wording. It's staying connected to yourself while you're speaking, while the experience unfolds. And honestly, I know that's harder, but it's only harder because we've learned it differently. It's actually the most natural thing to stay with ourselves, right? And it's more powerful. So just to ground this, okay? Awareness here is not failure, and slowing down is not weakness. When you become aware, you actually have the most ability at your disposal. And when you slow down, you give the entire conversation room to breathe. And tension inside a conversation does not automatically mean something has gone wrong. As I said, you can give them their attention or their response, and you can also have your own. Often when I get frustrated, I will say, I'm frustrated right now. I'm not frustrated with you. I'm not frustrated at you. I'm frustrated. And that speaks my truth without attacking anybody. Yeah? And sometimes it means simply that something has entered into the conversation, and that's real and it's important, right? So the anchor is this. People don't become more open when you push harder. I mean, I know that sounds logical, but when we're in conversation, we somehow think that if we push harder, it's gonna go through, right? People become more open when they no longer feel that they have to protect themselves from you. And not that you're a bad person, it's the state. That's what's speaking. It's speaking to their nervous system. Your nervous system speaking to their nervous system. So the most that you can do, the most powerful you can do, is to regulate your own nervous system, to stay grounded and to speak from that place. All right? Try it on. It's a practice. It's not perfection. Okay? So if you found this useful, go ahead, leave a comment. I'd love to hear how it was useful to you, or maybe a situation which you were challenged with and where you applied it. And go ahead and like the video, subscribe so you'll know when new ones come out. And next we're going to look at why do people defend themselves the moment that they feel judged, and how to shift out of that without trying to push harder. All right. Until next time, thanks for listening. Be well.